Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be starting to cut tile and get it ready for installation in the house when we get to that point. I'm trying to get as much done ahead of time as I can while we're waiting to start doing the excavation, which hopefully is going to start here in the next couple of days. What we're using is, of course, some of that tile that we went up and bought that I did that video on. And you know, any excuse to buy new tools. So I figured since we had all this tile, I needed some way to make it fit where we wanted it to and get a pattern that would make my wife happy. So I had to go buy a new saw. I'll show you that when we're getting set up to cut this tile. The tile we're going to be working on today is what we've decided to use in the upstairs portion of the house. It's decent looking tile, but you know, since that's kind of the unused area, guest area, office space, that kind of stuff, we're going to keep it pretty simple, use the same tile pattern throughout the whole upstairs. What we're going to be using is 12 by 12 and portions thereof, so half and quarter sections of 12 by 12 tiles. We're going to end up doing about 565 square feet. So what that means is I'm going to have for this pattern 226 full tiles, 283 full tiles that are cut in half, and then 57 of the full tiles that are cut into squares, so 6 by 6. And once we get done making these cuts, I'll lay it out and y'all can see what it's going to look like on the floor. We haven't decided on what kind of grout joint we're going to have, what kind of color, how thick, all that kind of stuff. That'll come later in the process, but the first thing we did was try to figure out what kind of pattern, and we're going to get these cuts done. So this is that 10-inch Kobalt tile saw that I was standing by the box kind of pointed at. I did a lot of research trying to decide what was going to work best. We're going to be cutting some tiles that are 12 by 24 up to some 24 by 24 as part of this project, and I needed something with enough capacity to cut stuff that big. Since we didn't know what the pattern was going to be, I needed to be able to cut that diagonal if necessary. There are some tile professionals that have done reviews of all kinds of tile saws on YouTube, and consistently this one was coming up as a good option for the price. I didn't want to spend $1,400 for a tile saw that I'm going to use for one job. I mean, I don't know, I don't think I'm going to become a tiling professional out of this, but this one was in a bearable price range and is actually proven to be a pretty good tool. I've already cut about 400 square feet for some of the downstairs just to test it and make sure it was going to work. I squared everything up to make sure I was going to get good square clean cuts, and it's working fantastic. One thing everybody said though is do not rely on the saw blade that comes with this thing. If you're cutting concrete pavers or something like that, it works great, but for doing porcelain tile, it was terrible. The blade that I'm using is a MK Diamond Products Hot Dog, the MK225 10-inch porcelain tile diamond blade. And one of the things I really like about it is it's got a really small kerf. I mean, like less than a 1/16 of an inch, more or less. So you're not wasting a lot of material. And it is doing really clean cuts on this porcelain tile. It's not tearing up the glaze hardly at all. It's going to take just minimal buffing on the edge of these cuts to clean them up and get rid of any sharp edges. So even though this tile has a nominal size of 12 by 12, they're not 12 by 12. I will be surprised if they come out to be 12 by 12. The stuff that I've been cutting today has been a 32nd to an 1/8 over or under the size that is spec'd out when you buy the tile. This one is about 12 inches and a 32nd, more or less. So we can probably get away with centering this blade at a 6-inch cut and end up with pieces that are going to be the same size. One nice thing about this saw is it does have a laser that'll show you where your cut is going to hit the tile. Just kind of helps you line it up. What I have found after getting everything set up and squared in here, these markings along the bottom are basically useless because there's not enough adjustment side to side in the saw head to get it perfectly centered so that you know that the 1 inch is an inch from the blade. You can't do it. So you've got to use a tape measure and get your measurement off of the blade that way. But if we center up 6 inches in the center of the blade, given the kerf that we're going to lose, we should end up splitting these tiles perfectly in half. Now, this stop is a little fiddly when you turn it down or start tightening it down. It actually moves in closer to the blade, and so you gotta kind of mess with it to get it perfectly lined up. But once you do, it's been holding fantastic. I made, I don't know, probably 300 cuts this morning with this thing, and every one of them was perfectly square. It did great. So we've got our measurements set up. The first thing I'm gonna do is start cutting the tiles that I need, half tiles. And like I said earlier, I need 565 pieces, which means I got to make 283 cuts to get those 565 pieces. So we've got our adjustment. I'm going to go ahead and start cutting these. There, most of this pattern has these what's going to be the long edge on this half tile vertical, so that way if I've got a bad chip on the edge, I can use this as a partial tile along the edge of the room. Slow down when you're coming out of the cut, you don't chip these corners as bad. Okay, the 6x6, don't have to adjust anything because we're just quartering this tile, so it's going to be a matter of taking these halves and then cutting them again. And this tile is actually kind of nasty because it was all stored outside, as y'all saw in that other video. But so now I've cut this in half. So all I'm gonna do is turn this and cut these in half. After you make the cuts on this tile, you're gonna have some chips in the glaze that you're gonna want to clean up. Y'all may be able to see these. I don't know if it's gonna show up on the camera or not. But because this glaze is basically glass cooked onto the top of the tile, you can end up with some sharp edges. This saw blade actually does a pretty good job, but you can see there's unevenness in there. So what you normally would do is relieve that edge or break the edge, just clean it up with some sort of abrasive. I've got a couple different options that we've been using. These are just hand pads. They're diamond impregnated abrasive pads, or abrasive on a foam pad, and these actually work pretty well. I've got 120 grit and a 60 grit, and all you do is take this thing, lay it on your edge at a little bit of an angle, and run it across there, and it'll clean that up pretty good. It doesn't give you a 100% factory edge, but by the time you grout it, you know, it's gonna disappear. You won't notice it unless you're down on the floor looking at it. But the most important thing is, if you're walking across this with bare feet, you're not going to cut your foot, especially if you've got a little bit of lippage. So even when you use the clamp system and spacers and all of that, you can end up with a situation where you've got what's called lippage, where you'll have a tile that's raised just a little bit above the edge of the next one. And if you've got that sharp edge there and you're in your bare feet and you're walking through there, you can cut yourself pretty good. The other option, since we've got so many of these that we're gonna have to do, my lovely wife is probably gonna end up doing this. I'll have to make a jig she can slide them in. But it is a rotary polishing or abrasive pad. You see them used a lot with granite and quartz countertops and stuff like that. But it's just a Velcro foam pad, and then the abrasive goes on top of it. And we've got grits all the way up to, I don't know, 3,000. But you just chuck it up in an electric drill and run it along the edge, and it does the same thing as the hand pad to clean that edge up. It looks better, but it's also, you know, a safety thing. Before I show y'all the tile pattern, I thought you might be interested in one of my daughter's projects from college. She had to do a tall cylinder for ceramics class. Of course, she wasn't happy about it because the glaze, the way it turned out. But, you know, being parents, her mom and I were pretty impressed. Thought it came out pretty good. Anyway, all right, so the pattern I was just cutting is this one. This is what's going to go upstairs in the guest bedroom, the office, bathroom, on the landing, so forth and so on. It's, you know, it looks all right. It's not overly complicated, but I think it'll look pretty good, especially if we choose the grout wisely. And then this is the one I was cutting this morning. These are bigger tiles. Instead of 12 by 12, these are 13 by 13. This is the pattern that's going to end up going in the master suite, master bedroom, bathroom, walk-in closet, and so forth. I think it's going to look pretty good. It's kind of a travertine pattern. It reminds me of the tile that I saw when we lived in Italy. You know, looks kind of like what was in the downstairs of our house. All right, folks, thanks for hanging out with me. I know this video is a little short, especially after some of those hour-long repair videos that I've been doing, but I didn't figure anybody wanted to watch me or listen to me cut tile for an hour-long video. This is, you know, just an example of what we're doing. Whenever we get to lay in the tile, the video is probably going to be a little longer because it's going to be a little more detailed in, you know, laying stuff out and putting down the grout and that kind of stuff. we're really close to getting started going on this house. We're waiting on our foundation contractor to come in and do that so we can get the slab poured, and then we're going to start putting up the block. Between now and then, I'm going to do a video kind of showing you what the house is going to look like and talk you through the different types of building material and systems we're going to be using to build the house. So stay tuned. Thanks for hanging out, and y'all have a good day.